Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So today we're going to be looking at the 2018 Senate elections based off primary turnout as of today, Saturday, November 3rd, 2018. So we're about 3 days away from the midterm elections if you count that day itself. And we're going to see a lot of interesting data from the early voting results. Early voting closed on the 1st in my state of Maryland. I think there are some other states that still accept mail-in votes up until tomorrow, but Tuesday is election day and it's coming up pretty close. So keep in mind these elections have been covered by me since June of 2017. After the election, I'm going to compare my earliest prediction to my last prediction, actually possibly before the election, and then promptly after the election. But today we're going to be looking at primary turnout and the exact numbers behind them. I have all the numbers for the Senate elections. I didn't make note of many of the non-Senate elections. I do have some results from states like Louisiana and states like Oregon, but they aren't on the Senate map right now, so they're not going to be talked about a lot. I'll probably just briefly go over them. As for a number of these more contested races, there isn't a lot of data. The Secretary of State doesn't always have to publish Republican Democrat turnout as of right now. Possibly once their early voting goes away completely. But right now I'm using a spreadsheet from, I believe, this early voting website that has the most up-to-date early voting results. And in fact, there's 92 people on it right now. So a lot of data here, but we're going to actually put it into a map form where you guys can actually see the results in terms of the margins as to what they would be based off turnout. So one thing to say about turnout is that these are states that you really aren't expecting much in terms of Republican Democratic turnout in early voting. Yeah, it's sort of an accurate indicator of how these voters are going to go. But if we look at a state like Tennessee, we're going to see the exact margin of the Republicans there. But keep in mind, they have majority Republican voters. These are Republican voters at heart. They vote for Republicans. But they may be more inclined to vote for someone like Phil Bredesen because they know him. They trust him. So things like that really could skew the results. This is based off results based off of early voting alone in terms of party registration. There are no true published numbers in terms of who's actually leading at this point in time in each Senate election. So these are all just GOP turnout, Democratic turnout, who has the more turnout, which is why this map isn't too accurate in terms of who's actually going to win, but it's just very interesting seeing the actual results go on the screen. So for the states that I don't have primary turnout, we're just going to actually use the predictions from my most recent video, the Senate elections as of November 1st. I'm actually going to make a Senate election prediction right after this video, so actually in hindsight I probably should have done the video first, so that way I could use the new ratings in the states that don't have races. But for right now, we're actually going to go through this and use the results from 2 days ago. So the map is probably going to change very little, probably just some margins are going to change. Some states may be classified a little bit different. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and start analyzing these early voting results. So we'll fill in all the states with early voting results first, and then we'll go into the states with the predictions that were already set 2 days ago. So Arizona is the first state. This is a state that actually has GOP turnout plus 7.9% over Democratic turnout. So that puts it in the likely column. But keep in mind, this is a state that has Republican voters. This is a Republican voting state in every single presidential election dating all the way back to 1996, which was the last time it went to a Democrat in a presidential election. As for the Senate election, hasn't gone to a Democrat for even longer than that, if I'm not mistaken. And overall, it's going to be very different looking at a state like this in the future because primary turnout, sure, could favor the Republican Party. But keep in mind, some Republicans did vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016 because of their dissatisfaction with the president. Also, turnout amongst minority voters, they may not necessarily be registered under the Democratic Party, but could be independent. So this is purely Democrat versus Republican. And when we're looking at the overall turnout, a 7.9% lead for the GOP seems like it would be good, but it comes down to who they're voting for and who they're actually against, because you can still be a Republican and vote against the Republican candidate. Same thing like in 2016 when a number of registered Democrats voted for Donald Trump in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The next state is California, which is a safe Democratic state, but is a likely Democratic state if there was a GOP candidate, because Democratic turnout was 11.2% more than Republican turnout. So essentially, if we're just looking at that state alone, 2 Democrats on the ballot, obviously not going anything more than safe, and obviously nothing less as well, because again, no possibility of a GOP win here. But 11.2% lead could say something about the state itself, but we'll discuss that possibly in the governor election primary turnout video, because that one actually has some more interesting results. But for right now, Democrats lead by 11.2%. Colorado is a state, again, that is not on this map, but is on the governor map. The GOP leads there, but I'm not going to say the margin until I get to the other video. Florida, the GOP is leading here. Right now, they lead by 1.3%, so that puts it in the lean column. That necessarily might not be a good sign, considering that Florida is one of those true toss-up states, and all very important. Democratic and Republican turnout is very important in these elections, especially in these close ones, which one this is expected to be. So Florida is off of our list. Idaho has turnout numbers. You know how those are going. Iowa as well, Kansas, Louisiana, and then Maine, which shows the Democrats leading by plus 15%. So I guess you could give that to Angus King considering he caucuses with the Democratic Party as an independent. In my home state of Maryland, 40.1% lead for the Democrats over the GOP. That is pretty much expected because that is a Democratic state, very Democratic state. I can attest to that. In the state of Nebraska, though, we do have some interesting results. A 9.4% lead for the GOP. That's pretty surprising to me, considering that Nebraska is typically stereotyped as a safe Republican state. In fact, Nebraska could have had a closer Senate election if the results actually did narrow down as 538 originally suggested, which was a 10-point lead for the incumbent here in the state of Nebraska, which has since expanded into around 18% lead for the GOP candidate. There was a point in time where 538 gave the possibility of a Democrat winning. If everything worked in the favor of the Democratic Party, they would win by 0.1%, but now they have no possibility of winning, less than 1% chance of winning, according to the deluxe rating from 538. Going over to the state of Nevada, this is one of the few swing states that actually shows the Democrats leading, plus 3.7% for the Democratic Party. So that is a pickup for the Democratic Party. There was a pickup in Florida for the GOP. That one went to Rick Scott, and I'm assuming this one goes to Jackie Rosen. Actually, there's a lot of interesting polling data from a number of these races. I've decided not to do any polling videos unless I'm going to do like a 30-minute long video or a 2-segment video where I break it up into 2 15-minute sections where I'm actually going to discuss all the polling from the past week, because the fact that I haven't been making videos like I really should be for the polling data and more of just focusing on the Senate and governor elections, there definitely is some interesting results, to say the least. But right now, Nevada goes to the Democratic Party by 3.7%. New Mexico has some interesting results, a 17.6% lead for the Democratic Party. Obviously, Gary Johnson is on that ballot. We're going to see how that actually turns out on Election Day. We do have some interesting results from the state of North Carolina. This is one of the states that doesn't have a governor election or Senate election. One of the few states, and it shows the Democrats leading by 11.5%. That is very surprising, considering that this is still a Republican state. Voted for Trump in 2016, voted for Romney. The last time it went to a Democrat was in 2008, and the last time before that, let's see, it could have been Carter. If not, it would be, I'm assuming, either LBJ, or I guess there could be another circumstance where North Carolina went blue. But typically stereotyped as a Republican state. The only time it ever went to the Democrat in a presidential election was Barack Obama in 2008 by 14,000 votes. So that was not at all a huge lead for the Democratic Party, but right now they're leading by 11.5% in terms of turnout. But again, they could be voting for GOP candidates. You never really know how they're voting until on Election Day. Oklahoma has some results. Oregon has results, but they're not on the map. Neither of them are. And 2 states, West Virginia and Tennessee, remain. So right now, West Virginia shows the Democrats leading by 7.5%. That doesn't change the way that we view this race. On my prediction, a likely characterization for the Democratic Party could become because of the fact that West Virginia holds many Democratic voters, as crazy as it sounds. In a state that voted for Trump by around 30%, it always seems crazy that Democrats are the majority in terms of party turnout. Sorry, not the majority, the plurality in terms of party registration. They currently have nearing in the low 40s. Republicans have less than that, and then, of course, independents and other political parties. But right now, the fact that the Democrat leads in a state that went to Trump by 30% seems a little insane, but also keep in mind these are Democratic voters. They voted for Bill Clinton twice, almost voted for Al Gore, and then all of a sudden became safe Republican on, let's say, the, national level. In terms of the governor level, they just elected a Democratic governor who switched to the GOP, adding another number to the GOP column, but still, West Virginia, a Democratic state in terms of party registration, and right now Joe Manchin isn't doing too bad amongst Republican voters either. So those numbers are probably the most believable out of everything here in terms of how the state is actually going to vote on Election Day. And the final state is the state of Tennessee. Tennessee actually has some very interesting results. We're seeing over 500% more turnout than 2014 amongst young voters. So that is something very, very crazy to me. But this state actually goes safe for the GOP because they currently have the GOP leading by 33% in polling data. Sorry, not polling data. I made a mistake by saying that. The early vote turnout. So when we're looking at the early vote turnout, the GOP leads by 33.0%. Now, that's expected. This is a Republican state at heart. We have a number of Republican voters who could be voting for Phil Bredesen isn't necessarily the most likely that all of them are voting for Phil Bredesen, obviously, but still, this race is a lot closer than it should be. Tennessee is not one of these toss-up states. The fact that a Republican is only leading by 5% definitely says that this race is going to get a lot closer than it should be. Keep in mind, if Bob Corker was in, it could be a close race, but still, we're looking at the numbers and looking at the state itself. It should be a safe Republican state, but Phil Bredesen is somehow changing that. And then we have a final state, the state of Montana, which doesn't have true published numbers on its Secretary of State website. So I'm trusting MSNBC for the numbers here. Shows the GOP leading by 17% statewide in terms of early voting data. So right now, obviously, that one goes in the safe GOP column, but again, another Republican state that votes for Democrats in a couple of elections. So those people that are necessarily registered with Republicans may not be voting Republican. So that covers all the states that we currently have primary data for. Keep in mind, 2014 there were 12.9 million voters and early votes, and then 2018 we have 24.0 million early voters, which is very surprising. The overall turnout is Democrats plus 5.5. Nationwide, and 6 days out from the election, 43% of voters, 6 days out, it was 43% GOP and 41% Democrat. Now it's Democrats plus 5.5% as of November 3rd, 2018. So now let's go ahead and characterize the rest of these races as they should be, and then we'll just fill in the map from there. So we're just going to go ahead and label all of the safe Democratic states and the likely Democratic states, including the state of New Jersey, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota at large, I guess you could say, goes to the safe column. Virginia as well. Ohio goes into the likely column. And now we can start characterizing some other states. Mississippi special election, safe for the GOP. Let's see. Let's go ahead and finish off this map real quick. That's not Nevada. North Dakota. Let's see if we have another state. The state of Texas. And Missouri was not characterized, and the state of Indiana was a tilt. So that's our final map based off turnout with 46 Democrats, 53 Republicans, obviously a gain for the GOP. A little bit more red on the map, and that finalizes this video. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.